Hey friends, it's Robin. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing what might be my final recent reads of 2022. I have 10 more books to talk about here, so let's get right into the reads. First up was A Restless Truth by Freya Marsk. I'm sorry if you can hear crunching in the background. My kitten has decided this is the right time to eat. So this is the sequel to A Marvelous Light, which was one of my favorite books of last year, and this was following one of our heroes from that book, his sister. And Maud has gone to the US to try and find somebody. Telling you who it is kind of a spoiler. So she's gone to the US to find someone and bring her back to the UK. While she is on the ship, the person that she was bringing back ends up being murdered right at the beginning of the book. This isn't a spoiler. And she needs to team up with this other woman on the ship who happens to be a magician, and the two of them need to try and solve the murder. It has a murder mystery plot, it has magic, it has a sapphic romance. This also features some other side characters from the first book, and I'm really hoping that that side character gets the third book. I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. I thought this was a really good addition to the series. It really expanded some of the things that we learned in book one, and so we got a lot of history that we didn't know. We got some new characters. However, I didn't end up loving this one as much as book one, as much as I loved the idea of a murder mystery on a ship. It ended up feeling too small. There wasn't the opportunity for a lot of movement. Everything was so small and contained that I felt like they just kind of did the same things over and over again, and I ended up not loving that. I also didn't particularly love this romance. I don't know what was missing from here, but I felt like the characters were keeping so much of themselves a secret that the whole time I was like, why do you like each other? Because you don't know anything about each other, because you're both kind of lying. I have no idea if this even had an HEA in it or a Happily for Now. And right at the end, we get a little peek of Robin and Edwin, and my heart soared. And I think that was the kind of like the nail in the coffin, I guess, for how I felt about this, was because my favorite moment was getting 2 pages of the heroes from book one. I liked the expansion of the overarching mystery and the characters and the history. It was just like the romance elements in here. I almost preferred the side characters and like the friendships than the romance. 3.5 stars. It wasn't bad by any means. I still really love this series, and I'm so excited for the third book, but just not my favorite addition to the series. Then we have A Tale of Two Cities by Alexandra Warren, the Thanksgiving novella, and I gave this one 4 stars. This was a funny one because right at the beginning of the book, I was reading this one and I was thinking, this might be too insta-lovey for me. I don't know if it's gonna work. It might not hit the same way that book one did. When I tell you that Alexandra Warren, she can pull off anything, I swear, because this was so good. This didn't have like a whole ton of Thanksgiving elements to it, but it definitely still felt really cozy and warm and perfect for the holiday season. So in this one, we are following our heroine, who is an actress, and she's always kind of been like a nobody actress, and recently she got her big shot, and so now people actually recognize her. And she's coming home for Thanksgiving. Our hero works at this barbershop. He has a very dark past because he grew up in poverty and kind of doing some bad things for his father, and he was able to escape, and now he is working at this barbershop, and he has a side business where he is essentially Uber. He agrees to go pick up the heroine because he kind of has like a little crush on her, and so he goes and picks her up, and they have like this immediate spark between the two of them, and they end up having a steamy night together, and it kind of goes from there. Like I said, this felt very insta-lovey at first, and I was like, I don't know, man, am I gonna be able to get on board with this? But by the end, this was so cute. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know how Alexandra Warren pulled this off, because this is 100% insta-lust. By the end, I was just like, I get it. I get it. You guys are adorable. I ended up loving this one a lot. 4 stars. I'm so excited to continue on with the series. If you watched my KU TBR earlier in the week, I shared that I have 2 more books in the series saved on my Kindle for Smuttathon, and I'm already so excited to read them because these are just so fun. They're so cute. Then I read Silent Night by Evie Mitchell, which I also gave 4 stars. I loved this novella so much. This was one that I had heard, I think it was Bree from In Love and Words talk about, and I'd been kind of saving it because I knew it was Christmas-esque. So this is Roy and Keely Sexy Christmas inspired, and you are following this heroine who is a princess. She gets stood up at the altar and very, very publicly to millions of viewers throws cake at her ex-fiance. It ends up becoming a PR nightmare and she needs to lay low for a little while. And so they send her to Alaska to stay with one of their family's retired bodyguards. And the two of them have always kind of carried a torch for each other. It was obviously forbidden at that point because he worked for the family. And now that he has left and she is staying with him, they finally get their second chance. And it is a only one bed. It is so steamy. It is so cute. You do not need to have read the full-length novel in order to read this one. I loved this one a lot. Then we have what might be my favorite holiday romance of the year so far, and that is Love Life Farms by B.K. Borison. And this was the friends to lovers holiday romance of my dreams. This was so good. I saw this going around everywhere and I was kind of on the fence about whether or not I would ever pick it up. I needed an audiobook. I needed some holiday coziness. And so on a whim, I decided to pick it up and it is worth every second of hype that it has gotten. This is fake dating. It is friends to lovers. It has an adorable tree farm, and I loved all of it together. We're following our heroine who is trying to get her tree farm out of debt. In order to do that, she just decides to sign up for this feature from a really big influencer, and she lies on the application and says that she purchased the tree farm with her boyfriend because she thought it would make it feel more romantic, and she doesn't have a boyfriend. And so she asks her best friend of 10 years to pretend to be her boyfriend, and the two of them have always loved each other. And this was the perfect case of friends to lovers being done right for me because often I can't figure out why they're friends and why they never cross that line. And this one was just done so well because you could easily see how these two ended up becoming friends and kind of getting stuck in that cycle. I loved it. The mutual pining, the amount to which the hero absolutely worshipped the heroine. Oh, I just loved it. I loved it a lot. So good. 5 stars. And then probably my second favorite holiday romance is Kiss Her Once for Me by Alison Cochran. I talked about this book a lot in the vlog where I read it, so I'm gonna have that linked up in the cards and down below. And I will try to keep this short and sweet because I feel like I've talked about this one a lot and I've given my pitch and my 2 cents about this book a lot. So this one is a sapphic romance about our heroine who has this amazing one night with this woman on Christmas Eve, and then something happens, they go their separate ways, and a year later, she is in a fake engagement with that woman's brother, and they all end up at an isolated cabin together, and it is a messy love square thing. It's fantastic. I gave this one 4.5 stars. It's so good. This has amazing demi rep. This has really good anxiety rep. This has so many good things in it. I love Alison Cochran's writing. I loved this romance. It was messy and cozy and steamy. I liked it a lot. And then another 5 star was a Wilderness of Stars by Shea Earnshaw. And I actually talked about this, I think in the same vlog, if I'm remembering correctly. But this was a YA sci-fi that I wasn't sure if this is going to be for me or not, but I love Shea Earnshaw's writing, and I've given almost every single book of hers 5 stars, and this was no exception. While this is outside of my comfort zone and normal genre, I just ended up loving the way that Shea Earnshaw crafted this story. It is, like I said, a YA sci-fi where our heroine is an astronomer, and she is waiting for the day that a star event occurs, and when that day happens, she needs to leave the safety of her valley and go find the architect, and the two of them need to go find something and possibly save humanity from an illness. It is one of those stories that the entire time you are reading, you think that you understand what it is doing and where it is going, and then something happens at like the 80% mark that changes everything that has happened in the book, and it was just so well done, so well written, so well plotted, and I loved every second of it. Then we have Saint by Adrienne Young, which is another YA story, and I really love the Fable duet, and so I was excited for this prequel novel. I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. It wasn't quite my favorite. So this is following Saint, who is Fable's father, and it is him meeting and falling in love with Isolde. And the reason I didn't end up giving this one a higher rating was one, it took me quite a while to get on board with this one. There isn't a whole lot of plot in here. There isn't a whole lot of anything in here, in all honesty, until quite a bit towards the end. You're kind of just following Saint and his best friend who are trying to get their trader's license. And so it's a lot of sailing, a whole lot of sailing, and going from port to port. And Isolde kind of doing the same thing over and over again. Once like the romance picked up, the story started coming together for me, and I liked that part more. But the lead up to that just felt so, so I'm gonna say long, even though this book is like 250 pages. Like it is really short, but it felt so long and drawn out, and I just felt like we were kind of having the same conversation over and over and over again. And I think part of it is because I thought this was going to be more of Saint and Isolde, and it felt more like it was Saint leading up to Isolde. As much as I liked seeing how they met and came together, the story ended once they were together. And I was like, no, 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 that was the part that I wanted. I wanted to know about their time together, and this was more about how they got to each other. And so it wasn't quite the story that I wanted. I was just left feeling a little disappointed. A surprising book, however, was Kingdom of Stars and Shadows by Holly Renee. I had seen this book going around quite a bit, and so I downloaded it on my Kindle, and I was in need of an ING book for my November buzzword prompt, and I ended up giving this 4 stars. This was so addicting. I've talked about this one quite a bit because I did vlog part of my experience reading this in my first Vlogmas vlog. This is one of those stories that you're reading, and like, it doesn't bring anything new to the genre. It doesn't do anything super surprising and shocking and different, but it is so entertaining and addicting and readable, and I loved it. This gives me the same feel as King of Battle and Blood and The Never King and all of those series. It's just a really entertaining book, and I loved it for that. I absolutely loved it. This is a fantasy romance following a heroine who is betrothed to this like prince, and she goes to the kingdom and she ends up falling in love with a guy that she's not supposed to fall in love with, and it is kind of a love triangle with some secret identities and fae and vampires. So it's a very familiar story, but I loved it. I loved it a lot. It ended on a cliffhanger. I already have book 2 downloaded, and I can't wait to continue on with the series. Then we have The Wrong Heart by Jennifer Hartman, and I unfortunately DNF'd to this one at 10%. I didn't DNF this because this is a bad book. I actually quite liked the writing in here, but I had to DNF this one for mental health reasons. I found the topics in this one to just be extremely triggering. I have generalized anxiety disorder, and one of my biggest triggers is anything involving hospitals. So illness, disease, death, hospitals, any of that type of stuff that is like told in graphic detail tends to trigger my anxiety. And one of the opening chapters is a very descriptive scene of the heroine losing her husband, and it was too much for me. I couldn't do it. And then it is you in the heroine's head as she is grieving and dealing with some very intense depression. And my anxiety was just like, it was through the roof. And I was like, okay, for mental health reasons, we're gonna put this one down. I can't handle it. That's okay. I've heard a lot of mixed things about this one. Some people absolutely love it. Some people really didn't like it and they hated the twist. So I don't know where I would land. I'm kind of curious to get some spoilers on it just to know where it goes. And then ending on a 5-star, we have A Single Bright Candle's Flame by Cole McCade, which is book 9 in the Criminal Intention series. I know we got almost to the end of this video without a Cole McCade book. I can't go a single recent reads without talking about a Cole McCade book. This was definitely a filler book. We are following Sanjay in the aftermath of something very tragic that happened in book 8, and it is him going through the grieving process and dealing or not dealing with what happened at the end of that last book. And it is his sister running away from home and fleeing to Sanjay, and it is their amazing sibling bond and Malcolm caring for him, and the two of them using the word boyfriend every other sentence because they are secret softies who are just desperately in love even though they won't say it. And I loved it. I loved it. This one didn't have another murder. It was very much so just character development and being with the characters and getting to see their relationship. I could read anything surrounding these characters at this point. I thought this was a really fantastic way to show how much mental health and trauma and grief and PTSD can affect you as a person, especially somebody who deals with addiction, what toll that can or can't take on a relationship, especially given Malcolm's past relationship and how he dealt with that poorly in the past and how he's dealing with it now in the present. It was a very well thought out book, and I think this was a really great addition to the series, even though it didn't have an extensive plot or anything like that. I thought this was it was a very smart book. So that is it for my recent reads. Like I said, this might be the last one of 2022. I'm not reading a lot right now just because I do have so much content coming out, and so I'm not getting a lot of reading done. So I have a feeling there's not going to be another one of these until 2023. Let me know if you've read any of these, and let me know your ratings if you have. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye!